You're late for your match. He said, I'm ready. I just don't know what channel to join. So he had me join channel Cats and invite him from there. But we solved it, and it very quickly as well. He joined and he was good to go. So yeah, we are here now, and that is good indeed, as the starting map here is going to be Waterfall. And what a series we should have in our hand. In the top right-hand side of the map, it is for Team Alpha X, Astrea.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have our blue Zerg player from Shopify Rebellion. She is Scarlett. I always enjoy the series between these two players, but it is very different, I feel like, from when I watch, say, Astrea versus Neeb or Scarlett versus Neeb, because I feel like Scarlett versus Neeb, that can sometimes be one-sided when Neeb just kind of seems to have, you know, the better edge of things or something. But when Scarlett plays Astrea, it really does sometimes just feel like there's a fundamental understanding that one of the players has over the other. And the games just look really wonkily one-sided. It's almost sometimes a little, I will say, it's almost sometimes a little bit disappointing. It's really fun from an analytical perspective, but this is just like two of the best players of the region that will face off against each other. And sometimes you're like, oh man, you know, that was, all of the games were very one-sided.
Yeah, Scarlett has a little bit of a rogue type aura in that regard, right? Where she'll do whatever it takes to win, and sometimes it's the simplest thing, and if she sees a weakness, she will exploit it over and over again, and she won't care for it to look pretty. It's just what she is going to do. She's excellent at it, but Astrea likely to be mixing things up throughout the series here, so I'm sure she'll have to bring different responses through and through. In fact, I think that this might have been already the first of that. I have to double check. But Astrea, I think Pylon scouted. I don't think that was a gateway scout. It was pretty early on the other side of the map, and it wasn't able to block the hatchery. So I'm wondering if that was a 15 hatchery. I was trying to take accounting of the drones. It might have been. Again, I'll have to check the replay. But in any case, Astrea not getting what he came for with this probe. So losing a little bit of mining time extra than he needed to. Not the biggest issue in the world, but a small detail to note.
Yeah, small little victories there with kind of just the openings of how PvZ works with the timing of the pros scouting out to block the hatchery, try and force the third base, and all that good stuff. But Waterfall's still going to be a map where you can get your units out, say, such as an Adept, really, really quick to the other side of the map and look for tiny bits of poking and prodding damage. It is just going to be a single Adept this game, as it was a Stalker follow-up, not a second Adept. So it's going to be mostly for scouting, confirming, say, like the third base has come down, there's not an all-in coming on Waterfall, and all of that good stuff. And that's going to be obviously a nice little breath of relief for Astrea. But this is the fun part where we get to see what Astrea's got planned, because he did go for a Robo first. It's a one-gate Robo.
Yeah, and a second late Adept leads me to believe that maybe we'll see a War Prism and two Adepts ferried into the main in order to try to do a little bit of damage. Also, no commitment or further commitment with this Adept at the start. So there is the Warp Prism and a second Adept indeed. A very cute maneuver, not exactly the most common one, but you know, one that can yield results, especially when you mix it in a series like this. So let's see if Astrea can find the damage that he wants with these Adepts, as extra gateways are also finishing.
Yep. Roach Warren is going to be thrown down over here for Scarlett, and I think that this Roach Warren will finish up just around the time that the Prism could like head across the map with maybe like one warp in of units or something. So I think Scarlett should have all the tools she needs available to help defend here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is just harassment. Astrea is going to be looking for drone damage more likely and not with the Adepts. So Scarlett not in a threat of dying until the follow-up push, which looks like it's going to include +1 attack, judging by the Forge, whatever upgrade Astrea chooses to get from the Templar Archives, and Immortals. So there's the +1 attack. Here come the Adepts, now ferried into the War Prism potentially. It's going to be two of them and two at the front as well. So Scarlett will have to defend on multiple fronts, already putting a little bit of damage onto the War Prism with the Queens there, nearly getting half of its shields down, as the next Queen is going to come to the edge here to completely deny the War Prism from going in, and as Astrea doesn't want to lose any whole damage onto the War Prism, especially because it's going to be essential for him for his follow-up push, which is going to be a charge slot Immortal push.
Yeah, it's going to be a strong one as well. And now Scarlett, I like that she's continuing to poke forward at the front, because even as she's poking forward to the front with those lings, yeah, she trades out a few of them, but she sees what additional warpins are coming out. She sees how many units are going to be warping in, kind of just gets a better sense of things, just because she doesn't really have another overlord that's going to be in immediate range to just get additional scouting information. That is the way that she's got to get her scouts, is basically poking in at the front repeatedly. And, well, the Gateway Flood is finishing up over here, Cats. The push is going to be coming in the next minute or two.
Oh, yeah, very soon indeed, as Astrea has been holding the Immortals in the main up until now, and now he is ready to move out. Note, Scarlett is only to 47 workers, so she started making units very early on with the information that she has gathered from the links poking, like you were saying, as well as just checking the third base to make sure that Astrea never took it. So she knows that there is an all-in on the way. She has been making only units. Is that going to be enough? I am inclined to say probably yes. I mean, it's always difficult to hold this type of attack, but there's not that many sentries. Zealots, you know, they're not the most microwave units in the world. It's difficult to disengage with them. So it's really all up to Scarlett, and she hasn't been caught off guard just yet. So let's see if Max can work some magic here.
Yeah, like you said, Scarlett has been non-stop flooding out units and everything. It is worth mentioning she did start making units quite early on, so there is a nice little advantage in Astrea knowing that there weren't extra drones mining for a little bit longer, just because Scarlett has been basically flooding out units, but she has got a very, very large army now. She's making a couple of Ravagers so she can go for pickoffs also on the Warp Prism, try and prevent additional micro from there. I mean, this is a scary looking army, and this is a kind of death ball that it's very difficult to get surface area with these Zealots properly against this kind of Zord force.
It is very difficult indeed. The Immortals really need to focus fire the Roaches as much as they can. Only 2 Ravagers are gonna mean that there's no real threat onto the Warp Prism on the side of Scarlett. She is lacking a little bit of gas, I guess, as the engagement started. Now she has it slow, so maybe she could morph some more. And actually, the start of the engagement doesn't go too badly for Astrea, who has 4 Immortals. That is a very high amount of Immortals for this stage in the game. He is gonna get rid of both Spore Crawlers here at the front. Ravagers now being morphed to try to mitigate for Force Fields, but they are mostly gone, and Astrea is somehow, some way punching through here and looking to make his way into the ramp of Scarlett for this first game. The Warp Prism is now showing up. Now there is 3 Ravagers, so it has to be a little bit more careful where and when it sieges. And now there is the next siege. Scarlett not with enough room to push on forward and just use one of the vials. That means only 2 vials are likely to connect, and that's gonna be the case, but that's not enough to kill the Warp Prism. So good moves from Max to anticipate that, and he will take game number 1.
Really, really well executed there by Astrea. Scarlett, she kind of saw a bit of that coming. Like you were saying, she stopped at 47 workers. She flooded out units and everything. And it even seemed like she was kind of somewhat there ready to intercept, but it did sort of feel like maybe catching things like right basically at the entrance between her like third and her natural and stuff. Maybe that caused a little bit of problems just in the sense that she wasn't able to get the Queens or the Ravagers close enough to like deny the Warp Prism from warping stuff in. There's little things, I guess, that were not going super well, but I don't know. Like, what do you feel like went really wrong there for Scarlett with the defense?
It's very difficult to say, right? Like, she definitely started making units very early on when she saw the Warp Prism. So maybe she could have found room to make like 3 or 4 more workers at some point, right? It's really the small margins that are gonna matter here. And also, I would say like she had like 200 gas throughout the engagement, but only managed to morph 2 Ravagers before the engagement. I also think that's big. Another thing is the links engaged onto the Zealots pretty early on. So I think ideally the Roaches are tanking the Zealots a little bit more, but that's a difficult judgment call to make because then the Immortals can also get a little bit closer to the Roaches. So it's just a very difficult technical defense. I think that the engagement location that Scarlett chose is fine because she should have more units to fan out and absorb Astrea, and she also had the Spores there. But yeah, I mean, the Warp Prism not under a lot of threat there is definitely a factor as well, though. Not something that you would ever rely on as a Zerg player, right? Like your win condition shouldn't be to snipe a Warp Prism, but if you do snipe it, you do win, right? It's just not a reliable win condition. So, yeah, I think just beautifully executed from Astrea. Maybe Scarlett not anticipating that it would be 4 Immortals that early. That was a lot. Really light on the sentries as well. So it's a little bit of a different take on the Immortal push from Max there.
Still looked very strong, and it was a nice attack there from Astrea, which puts one on the board. That's going to be a nice little 1-0 lead there. And like we were kind of been saying, like this is sometimes just the way that their series tend to go, where there'll be like these quick stabs that feels like, oh, like yeah, I guess that game was kind of straightforward in the sense that Astrea did a 2-base all in. Scarlett prepared, but didn't quite manage to hold it, and that's the first game. But that is going to be kind of like the fun things going on. And I like what you were saying before as well, Cats, where Astrea is likely going to be throwing out a lot of different things today. He's not the kind of player who's just going to have one build order he executes over and over and over again in a best of 5.
And that is the beauty of a player like Astrea, right? Like, he is just so good at mixing it up, at preparing build orders that the players haven't seen before. So it's very difficult to optimize against them. A lot of the time, like with Protoss openers, whenever they get popular, they get figured out. And so, like, you know, Lambo will put up a YouTube video that says, hey, like, you need to drone up to this number of drones, and then it's always an easy hold. But that's impossible, nearly impossible to figure out on the fly. And I think that that is where the power of Protoss kind of relies. And Astrea is just such a great proponent of the race in that sense. So let's see if he can continue to work some magic, if he can continue to surprise here, as that game was always going to end suddenly one way or the other, and it was in favor of this man this time around. It is for Alpha X, Astrea.
Up here at the top left-hand side of the map, the blue Zerg player certainly far from out of it just yet, only down 0-1 from Shopify Rebellion. She is Scarlett. And Astrea going to be the one that takes the aggression to Scarlett's front door in game number 1, but it'll be fun to see how things play out in game number 2. I do feel like Astrea is the kind of player that has a pretty strong, like, I would say, post like 2-base stage of his gameplay usually in PvZ. So I think while he definitely can throw out those 2-base all-ins and stuff, I do think I would not pin it as like Astrea being the kind of player who does 2-base all-ins the majority of his games by any means.
No, but it's certainly part of his strength that he can mix in, man, and that was beautiful, really. From him, it's so difficult as well to know exactly what goes wrong for Scarlett as well, because you know, you're not playing the game, so you don't know if you got supply blocked for a second, or if you feel like you could have snuck in more workers perhaps, or if you spend all of your gas, if you know, like there's just the little details. Again, the positioning I think wasn't ideal, losing a lot of the Zerglings early on as well, because then the Immortals just kind of had free reign. But I mean, that's all to the credit of Astrea bringing something new to the table. Very difficult to anticipate on this map. I wonder what he is going to do. It's a map where you can defend the third base tucked in if you want to, with much less than on other maps. So you could be a little bit greedier, perhaps, in the approach, as this time around, Astrea does get the block on the hatchery on the other side of the map. Robo yet again, though.
Yep, Robo yet again for Astrea, and it didn't actually do like a ton. Like, he didn't really use the Robo super early on and, you know, pick away at drones or anything in the last game. But I think this is another kind of strength of Astrea, is opening up very similarly to previous games and having things that look almost identical, but then diverge in a particular way, potentially after a scout would normally come in. And that makes it a lot harder for his opponents to actually get a read on what he's planning to do, because you show 2 different builds that diverge in a very significant way, where one's a 2-base all-in, another is kind of like moving more toward a macro play or a later attack. Then going into the next game, you're thinking, all right, I scouted the same thing. Which one is he doing? And I think Astrea is great at those kind of mind games.
I completely agree. He is one of the most fun players to talk to for me. I mean, it's so fun because he always brings up different approaches. He always tries his own stuff. And I think that is just a very, very big strength if he can continue to polish his game, which over time he has been doing time and time again, to where he is a world-class Protoss in today's day and age, right? So it is so scary because he has so much potential still to go, I think.
Yeah, and we do have, in fact, 7 gateways on the way here, Cats. So, you know, all of the talk I had about, oh, well, you know, I don't feel like he all-ins the majority of his games or anything. So far, we're batting, you know, 2 for 2. Because this is definitely going to be a very scary and strong-looking all-in. Zergling should have seen the War Prism over there, so Scarlett should know about a move-out. She's at 43 drones, but has made a few more, going up to 46. She's making a few links. She's only just now throwing down a roach trench. She's only got 3 links on the map. Oh my God, Cats! I am very scared for Scarlett right now.
Yeah, and you should be. I mean, this is what you were talking about as far as Astrea is concerned, right? Like, yes, this is an Immortal all-in, but it is a very different attack than last time around. Sure, it's going to be Zealot-based, but it's hitting so much earlier, right? And we were just talking about adjustments for Scarlett. Maybe she should have droned up a little bit more in the last game. Well, this time around, Astrea is saying, hey, you know, if you're droning up a little bit more, I'm going to punish that. Let's see if he's able to, as these are charged, or not charged shots, rather, just slow Zealot. This is a very, very fast-hitting, very committed attack from Astrea. He is effectively all in. The Lynx are not going to have much to provide here, and the Queens, however, are really difficult to get to for the Zealots. Now Roaches in production. Make that one Roach. It is a... I mean, this is comical. Never seen anything like it.
It certainly is wild. Now, I believe that another warp-in should be available in a moment's time, but the Prism had to back off so far. It did decide to warp in a little bit further south, but I mean, seems like the Immortal is still relatively well protected, and I mean, this is just such a tough defense to make work for Scarlett.
Yeah, the problem for Astrea is Roaches are about to spawn, but I mean, he is in an incredible position already, right? So the Immortals have gotten rid, or the Immortal has gotten rid of both Spine Crawlers, which is wonderful for him. I'm actually a little bit surprised that he's not looking to actually warp in Stalkers, but I guess he is not getting any gas. He just stopped mining gas, so slow Zealot are gonna win game 2 for Astrea. Just similar opening, shows the Warp Prism, but changes the beat just a little bit with another strategy that I have never seen before, and the Scarlett may not have either.
Yeah, it's so tough when you're facing off against a Protoss player that plays like this, because then you start thinking as a Zerg player, like, oh man, do I need to start investing in like Overlord speed? Do I need to be sacrificing Overlord sooner? But as soon as you start thinking about that stuff, then it's like, well, let's say I did invest into all of that earlier. I may have seen it sooner, but then I would just have fewer resources to actually mount the defenses. It's like, it becomes such a crazy game of just diving 7 levels deep, because then you're also thinking, oh man, but if I do that and then they just play macro the next game, now I'm also behind. It's really tough. This is where Astrea oftentimes finds a lot of his strength, I think.
Yeah, that is how it often feels. And we were talking about how these players know each other as well, very well. They're both in Korea, in fact. So, I mean, I think that Scarlett, just watching her games as of late in the CVP matchup, she really likes the +1 melee right now for the Zerglings. She really likes link-based styles. And even against Adepts, which traditionally kind of wreck Zerglings, she can kind of make it work, right? So Astrea, in a sense, is kind of punishing what he thinks Scarlett is, you know, very prone to do with this last strategy. So a beautiful job from him. It's not something, you know, don't copy that build. It's because you're probably going to lose a bunch of ladder games as well. But knowing and taking into account what Scarlett can and cannot do, and what she has and hasn't been doing, and her philosophy, and just kind of like, again, having the last game to lean on as a base to trick your opponent is all that Astrea is doing here, and he's doing a wonderful job of that.
Yeah, that was a great best of 3+ build, and it also took into account the opponent. It is empowered by how the game number 1 opened up, and kind of setting up and establishing, or almost a little bit of a pattern, a bit of a narrative there, and then kind of turning it on its head. So really fantastic job there from Astrea in the first 2 games. Let's see how he fares, as he is going to be starting down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map. The red Protoss player from Alpha X, he is Max Angel.
And in the top right, it is now trailing 0-2, trying to bring it back to make it a 5-gamer. If she wants to win it, it's gonna be Scarlett for the Shopify Rebellion. Astrea once again blocking the hatchery of Scarlett here.
Yep.
And Scarlett was trying to go for the 15 hatch, by the way. Astrea just moved this probe that much earlier. 15 hatch, I love 15 hatching, and I almost never see it at the pro level, but this is kind of like meta, right? Like, because it's like Scarlett is trying to go 15 hatch in order to prevent the block from Astrea, but Astrea sent his probe so early that it accounts for 15 hatch. So, you know, because that's an inefficiency otherwise, because if every Zerg is dropping their hatchery at 16, you know, like, then you're at a little bit of a deficit by scouting that much earlier, right? So most Protoss players sync it up really nicely. This time around, Astrea knows that it's within Scarlett's wheelhouse to go for that 15 hatch, and blocks it all the same.
Yeah, fun extra little mind games in that kind of early game stage. And Scarlett going to be forced to take that further away third base, and it's worth mentioning there is a little bit of an economic bit of damage done with that, not just the timing of the hatchery being a little bit delayed by, 5 or 6 seconds, but also just the extra drone transfer time in the early stages of the game to a further away expansion as opposed to from the main. All of these little annoyances do start to add up when you aren't looking to do something like, say, a 2-base all-in.
Oh, baby, aim high. So we have it on our screens. You guys are welcome for this, as we can see both players as they are multitasking around in the early game. But yeah, it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool mind games indeed from Astrea, getting the better of Scarlett on that front for the time being. And yeah, it's the extra added benefit of the meta game as well being established, to where if you're going for a 16 hatchery, you usually send out your drone a little bit earlier to scout the probe coming in. But because Scarlett is going for a 15 hatchery, she also doesn't feel like she needs to, right, scout for the probe, because it shouldn't get blocked at a normal timing. So that even makes her waste more time, because she realizes she's getting blocked at the last possible second. So she has to start moving from further out, whereas otherwise her drone would have been spotting the probe further out on the map and closer to the third that she needs to readjust to.
Yeah. Feelings do manage to make their way into the main base over here and do scout out. Well, probably something that I would not be thrilled to see after the first 2 games. It's a Robo, as the Adept also looking for a bit of damage. I think he may have actually been able to find a single drone over there as well. Yeah, going to be going for a second one as well. Not going to be able to find it yet.
Not going to be able to find it indeed. I mean, really cool move from Astrea, though, trying to get as close as possible to the drone to prevent the surface area that the drone actually needs around itself to morph the spore, right? So he was trying to move as close to the drone to prevent that with its body before it had another shot to offer.
Yeah, and I also just want to note the follow-up over here from Astrea. The robotics bay off of 1 gateway. This is an old school PvZ style, going 1 gate robo bay with the Twilight Council. This is going to lead to some fun stuff. This is going to be very, very different from the first 2 games for sure. And I'm curious to see how Scarlett's going to be able to handle this good old disruptor drop. And wouldn't even, I feel like sometimes we do also get blessed with the good old Warp Prism speed upgrade with this build. We'll see if he goes for it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit unlikely at this point, because he's rallying the 1 disruptor into the Warp Prism, so he's going to want to move out with the first Warp Prism and the first disruptor, apply a little bit of pressure, and he's already dropped and finished actually his Twilight Council, and he's getting charged. So there's going to be an all-in follow-up. This is just a little bit of pressure before that, and then more likely than not, we're going to see a Colossus added to the mix to account for the circlings, right? So actually, since he's getting charged, maybe he can get a second disruptor or something of the likes, because the circlings are going to be accounted for from the charge. So Astrea really mixing it up, and Scarlett has faced a couple of this from Trigger, but this is a third flavor of this I guess type of attack, and the third flavor in this series of a Robo that Astrea is trying to show Scarlett.
Yeah. Oh!
1 drone,
Woof.
2 drones. Not bad.
Yeah, definitely not bad. I think I'm actually being thrown back. I could be wrong. It may have been last season or like the previous season from last year that I saw Astrea literally doing this kind of build. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it works really, really well. So far, Astrea seemed to have had Scarlett's number, and Scarlett, she is still droning up right now, which I think is safe to do for like that last round of drones maybe, but she really just wants to go pedal to the metal on units right now. She wants nothing but units, because this is going to get hitting hard, and it's just going to be hitting in like the next 30 or 40 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. The third is a fake from Astrea. He is not making probes to saturated whatsoever. He stopped at 42 workers, a relatively small amount. He could cancel the third if he really wants. Scarlett already scouted it, so that is the information that... Oh no, she drones! She's dead, I think, Ravi. I think we might have a very quick 3-0 in our hands, as Astrea did make that second disruptor, which I love, because again, the Zealots are going to account for the Zerglings. So it's the Disruptors against the Roaches rather than the Colossus against the Zerglings that he's going to opt to get from the Robo. Here comes the next shot of the Disruptors, and the Zealot Warpens should start soon, but he is giving Scarlett a lot of time and actually warping in units to defend back at home, as well as revealing his charge.
He does reveal charge, but I think I liked it because he just warped in 2 Zealots, and it kind of puts on the facade for a little bit longer. And now we end up seeing, the Queens are running away from the massive swell of charge lots. The Prism also going to be able to get into a nice safe spot away for the Queens. Disruptors going off on the drones. The Roaches finally come in to reinforce. Can the
Banelings.
Banelings actually finish up in time? Oh,
not those ones, but that's just Zerglings effectively that Astrea is killing. He needs to split his Zealots beautifully here. Scarlett doing a good job of just kind of withholding her army and whatever she had, but she did drone up kind of heavily earlier, and that might cost her as the Zealots are now going into the Roaches. 2 Banelings. Those could be the saviors for Scarlett. Yeah, are they going to connect? Instead, it's the Disruptors that connect in the back of the Roaches. The Banelings don't connect as well as they might have otherwise. And now, I mean, it looks to be like Astrea is going to close things off here. Scarlett scrambling for a defense. More Roaches on the way. Astrea getting a little bit overeager perhaps at the front here with those Zealots and not contributing with the Zealots in the back. He did kill some workers with the Disruptor shot. I almost would have rather seen the Disruptor shots utilized just exclusively for the army of Scarlett because he has to kill his opponent here.
Yeah, remember that even though Scarlett has, in fact, you know, lost the hatchery and everything, even if she loses the other hatchery, you might think, oh, it's 2 base versus 3. How is Astrea realistically going to actually defend against a big counter swing of Roaches if this is his army composition? Like, he's going to be relying on insane disruptors unless he's able to get additional damage done.
Yeah, this is if he kills the third, then it might be okay here. And he already recalled the sentries, but hasn't started pro production. He is now focusing on the hatchery. If he gets this, he's gonna be on defense beauty. And this war Prism with the woohoo!
Okay.
I was gonna say with the Disruptor is gonna be really good on defense, but it's gonna actually begin taxing Scarlett on the other side, and now Scarlett would still have to cross the map. This is the point in time where Astrea says, I have done enough, and he starts probing up for his third. So happy about those weapons earlier, I'm sure, to defend the third as well, as it didn't set up for the win condition of Scarlett, and another huge Disruptor hit. Ravi, it's looking grim for the Queen.
It is looking very, very grim. There's only a single Ravager as well, and I love the identification of that from Astrea, where he sees the Corrosive Bile coming out on the Prism. He's like, that's not even going to take off my shields. So I'll just eat the Corrosive Bile. I don't need to cancel my Disruptor shot. I'll go for the damage. And then, yeah, I can just pick up and escape out of here safely. And that's exactly what he does. Prism's still in safe.
Oh, double infestation pit.
That's a hive on effectively 2 base right now, Cats.
Yeah, I mean, she's looking for something. I don't know if it's lurkers or I don't know what she's going to be looking for. There's already Disruptors out. This next wave of the attack looks deadly from Astrea, and he doesn't even need to push right now, but he has the means to. He is pretty strong. Maybe a Viper. A Viper would be good, but it is such an expense to get a Viper, you know, to get an infestation pit and a hive just to get a Viper. That makes the Viper cost in the 800s or so of resources. So not sure if that's going to be worth it. And Scarlett will have to tap out. It's a clean sweep and a quick one at that. Astrea with 3 flavors of Robo. This is all you need in the